We are the ministry of the real truth. Welcome. Shalom, shalom, peace be with you, peace be upon you. May the abundance of the Most High God, Maran Allaha, Il, Esher, the I Am, be placed upon you. Blessings, and thank you for taking the time to watch this, our latest video upload. We have just finished watching this particular video, a personal testimony of one man's near-death experience when at a young age, a very young age, and through his teens, ingested a hell of a lot of drugs, alcohol, etc., with his neighbours, who were like gangsters, and they had all that sort of stuff. Having a near-death experience, relating his out-of-body experiences of death, going to hell, meeting a man experiencing something in the presence of snail, lizard-like demons, and a golden angel with musical instruments embedded in his chest. To us, he seems very passionate about his experiences when he relates his experiences. He does cuss now and again. We realise that that's because you're so passionate about what you have to say. That does happen. But when you every second word is a cuss word, you start blaspheming, that's something we're concerned with, but he hasn't done that. He relates his experiences of telepathy, parallel with his inner voice, his own voice in his mind. His thoughts are in his voice. The thoughts of the man he's witnessing going through his own personal experiences over and over again, etc. This particular NDer hints at who the man is, but doesn't reveal his identity until the end of the video. Uncannily, we guessed exactly who he was when he mentioned Egyptian hieroglyphs and a golden angel on a golden angel's hand. We will reveal what he, the NDE guy, revealed about the guy that he had watched during his experience, a never-ending experience, rather like Bill Murray in the film Groundhog Day, kept repeating it over and over and over again, going through the same thing over and over again. So we'll play a little bit of this video. The first few minutes are a trailer. Okay, and also there's a timeline here. We've blurred it out for personal reasons, but you can go there and watch this video in its entirety. We'll leave the link to it below this video. If you like it, think it's very powerful, and you're inspired by it to accept Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, Jesus the Christ, into your life, then let us know that you've done that. Okay, and we will celebrate that with you. We'll give you credit, etc. Okay, so this man goes to hell and sees the famous false prophet. So we're going to play a little bit of this. This is the trailer first.
It was the most obvious thing. Nobody had to tell me nothing. I walked into the presence of death. They're yelling, "Let me out, I'm a Christian." They're thinking I'm a Christian as he passes by them. The toughest Satan worshiper guy that goes there is just going to cry like a little girl. Like, just to see if people just goes out forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You're the reason that we're in hell, you big fat liar. Come down here so we can knock you out, beat you up, and make you pay. And the one that stood out was like a young girl, and she even had a teddy bear in her dress, and she looks up at him and she says, "Daddy, why did you lie to us?" And somehow or another I realized the next section is where I go.
Hello and welcome back to the Almost False Podcast, right?
So with that statement that he saw this particular man, a false prophet who had a daughter, had a family, she cried out to him and said, "Daddy, Daddy, why did you lie to us?" You'd have to do the research when this person was identified to see if he actually got married and had a daughter and she died young. Okay, because in his experience, his torment was in hell to see his daughter and his family, etc., go through all that they went through because of him in a lifetime, involving him, over and over and over again. Okay, So you need to do the research on this particular person identified at the end of this video. We will probably spoil it and tell you who it is, and then bring you the history, life history, background, etc. of this particular said false prophet. We'll carry on with this.
If you regular people with incredible stories, today's guest had an out-of-body experience a few years ago where he died and went to hell. His name is Cody, and he shared his experience with me in an impressive amount of detail. He also talked about seeing a very famous religious leader while he was there, so stick around to the end to find out who it is. It's a wild one, so strap on your seatbelts and join me as we immerse ourselves in this story with Cody.
I just got into drugs at a really young age, like 10 years old, kinda. My parents just didn't know about it, nor did they expect it. Nobody's thinking that a 10-year-old smoking pot or anything, you know, so it's pretty easy to hide. My neighborhood had some people in it that were pretty gangster or whatever, if you want to call it that, and I just spent a lot of time over at their houses, you know what I mean, and because of that, I'd be drinking with them, and then I'd be convicted, and then I'd go up and I'd tell them about, hey, we need to stay sober, it says in the Bible, whoop-de-whoop. So growing up in a Christian home and knowing about the power of God, the power of the name of Jesus, having demons messing with me since as far back as I can remember, you know, not even sleeping with my light off, you know, I have my light on, my door open, you know, when I go to sleep, up till like probably 17, 18, honestly. So like having all this torment and stuff coming against me, knowing the power of Jesus, knowing that this stuff is all, the Bible is all real. The only way for me to experience sex or drugs or partying or doing anything that everybody else is doing is to fully straight up just say, I'm going to rebel and I'm going to do what's wrong on purpose.
And it led eventually to one night where it's not Percocets, but it was methadone. You said that you did way too much of it, and that's when it all started.
Yeah, well, I ended up on heroin, and then when you're withdrawing, you get so sick, man. You're no longer going to work. You're no longer doing nothing. Nor do you care what falls apart. You're just, all you care about is feeling better. It takes full priority when you're withdrawing off this stuff. So, woke up, crushed up about 5 perk 10s. I snorted them up. I ate the other 10 of them. Give me 15 perk 10, or not perk, methadone 10s. So after I took the 15 methadone 10s, I'm just milling around. This is when Obama was getting everybody unemployment, so I don't have to work, and I'm getting checks in the mail, and I'm just doing whatever I want to do. And I went into the kitchen, and I remembered that I seen my bottle of Everclear somebody gave me. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna drink today, I guess. I don't know, I ain't doing nothing else. So I'm just like in the house by myself. So I just start drinking, double shot of Everclear, bam. You know, do another one a couple minutes later, bam, starting to feel pretty good. Do another one. Well, I'm thinking like 5 or 6 of those double shots to where all of a sudden I walked into my bedroom and the presence of, it was the most obvious thing. Nobody had to tell me nothing. I walked into the presence of death and I knew, there's something in here. There's an entity in my room and I know exactly what he's here to do. So I was like, Jesus, please forgive me for my sins. I just say it. I knew I was dying. I knew I wasn't living right. I knew where I was going. And I said it real fast. Jesus, please forgive me for my sin. And I think I'm on the word sin where I'm dropped. I'm just flying downwards through a tunnel. And this thing had my back, that whatever that was in my bedroom that I never looked at ever because I never seen it. And I never looked behind me to see it either. But that thing had a hold of me like a rag doll. And it was huge. There's no point in fighting it. So I'm just flying through hell. I'm flying through a tunnel. I didn't have enough time to think about, this is hell or nothing. My eyes are just like full of looking around, you know what I mean? Like at this tunnel, there's people chained each side of the tunnel. The first section I go to, and they're screaming, and I'm downloading everybody's thoughts. Like if I flew by you at the speed of light, when I fly by you, I know everything about you. I know more about you than you know about you. Like that. And if there's 1 million people that I flew by right away at the speed of light, and I just flew by them, I would know everything about every one of them more than they know themselves without trying.
So you get transported down this tunnel, and did you land? Where did you arrive? What happened after? Because you got somewhere.
The first thing is like they're yelling out. They're like looking behind me. They're yelling out to the death angel guy. I'm going to keep calling it death angel, right? That's what I think it is, and I don't really care to be perfect on it. But whatever, the death angel, let's say. So they're yelling, let me out, I'm a Christian. They're thinking I'm a Christian as he passes by them. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of a trip to see that. And then bam, we just stopped. You know how like a UFO can be like, or whatever?
Yeah.
It was like that, and it didn't do nothing to me. It didn't hurt me or nothing. And I'm just looking at this huge line of people, and I'm reading their thoughts and stuff. They're wearing all sorts of different type of clothing. You got people from Adam and Eve's day all the way up until 2020 or whatever. Whatever year it was when I went there. Different clothes. You got Americans. You got Asians. You got full 9 yards. But what's happening is this one dude that got my attention, this white boy. I went right into his trance, and I'm looking down with his hands and his arms, and he's a little boy. And as soon as I see what's going on, I freak out, like I don't want to see that. So I immediately close my eyes, and I want out, and I get out. Like, it was just like that, right? But the split second I was in there, I felt everything that he felt. And it was a torment. He was not enjoying himself. He was like, stop, he can't stop, he cannot stop. Like molesting this little boy, but it's not really happening, it's in his head. But it's totally real to him. There's no difference that he can tell. It's just like he's over and over and over for eternity. He's not going to be able to stop. And he's not enjoying it like he did on earth at all.
So hell is not the party that some people make it to be.
Oh, there's no party. There's zero enjoyment. Nobody goes there and they think that that's even okay. The toughest Satan worshiper guy that goes there is just going to cry like a little girl. The toughest one on the planet is going to just bawl and beg to get out, and he ain't never getting it out.
And talking about never getting out, can you feel time pass? Was there a sense of time as we know it? Or because it's hard to wrap our heads with what eternity is like or what it feels like.
Yeah, I could totally tell about time. It says time flies when you're having fun. When I was in hell, time was slowed down. But I didn't know that when I was experiencing it, right? So anyways, the whole hell experience, to me, I felt like 4 days.
So we're going to jump a little bit because it's quite long. It's 44 minutes long. We're into 10 minutes of it. So we're going to see if we can go to where he talks about this person that he's watching having his own personal experiences and torments.
They start to call out, so like they're wanting help. They're getting support. They're getting help. So they end up calling like this gross noise that they make. It's a demonic. I'd say it's like a wannabe speaking in tongues or something. So then they like call out, and this black thing comes through the wall, and it looks squared. It looked like a shape. It was about maybe that big. Kind of like if you folded up a bandana or something, you know what I mean? Or maybe 2 pairs of socks, that type of size. Kind of.
Skip ahead a bit more. Try to get to that.
Together. I'm just watching it like I'm watching the friggin' movie, and I'm not really going, oh, that's this or that. I'm not doing any of that figuring out. I'm just kind of like totally scared because I know I remember that I just was in hell. So I'm not tricked like this guy thinking he's at his house again. I'm thinking we're in your trance, bro. But he don't know it. It's too convincing for him. So anyways, as it calls out this beautiful noise, boom, I hear the door slam open, and I hear he's just trucking up the stairs, and he lands right on his face, dude, just to start worshiping this thing. And I realize I get this information, okay? And the information is he's seen it before. That wasn't the first time he heard that instrument voice thing. Okay, so there was familiarity there, and there was safety there, and there was comfort there. And he starts worshiping this thing on his face. And so this giant golden thing, I could discern that it was totally fake what he was doing to the guy. But he kind of picks him up and talks real sweet to him and stands him up. And so he goes like this with his arm, and the whole house that we're looking at the inside of the house, we're looking at the inside of the walls, disappears, and now you're looking at a sea of people like we're at a freaking Woodstock, bro. Like just a sea of people just goes out forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then a golden angel looking thing walks them up to the edge and then kind of like, hey, preach to them, give them the message I gave to you. And so then it steps back, and I'm watching both of them, dude. And it steps back and it holds up his arms like this. Oh, you can't see the camera. But he's holding floating hieroglyphs, just like Egyptian hieroglyphs off you know what I mean, off National Geographic, bro. I've never been to Egypt, but those hieroglyphs, dude, looks the same. Looks exactly the same.
So, this golden angel with this music, or this instrument in its chest, it's playing this particular music. Like, you've never heard of this particular instrument, perhaps, and that kind of music. He's saying, preach to these sea of people what I taught you, what I told you, revealed to you, right? So it's holding up his hands like this guy here. He's demonstrating it, and it had these hieroglyphics on it. So have you guessed yet who that particular guy's false prophet was? Okay, we clicked onto who he was as soon as he said this golden angel had hieroglyphics on his hand, and they were going, the hand was turning around, and you see different hieroglyphics. Just continually did that. We realised, okay, we got an idea who this guy is, false prophet, etc. Right? So we'll continue with that.
And they're floating, and there's like 6 of them, and so the guy's over here, like facing away from both of us, and he's on the edge, and he's speaking to this crowd like he's preaching. And I remember I could feel how he felt, and he felt like somebody. It was almost like he was feeling like he was getting worshipped. You know what I mean? That glory, that glory that man is getting from man. He was eating that up. He liked it, and I thought that was pretty weird, because I just don't relate to that type of sin. You know what I mean? There's sins that I do relate to, but it just ain't that. And he was just, anyways, he's enjoying it, and he's just speaking to this crowd, and he really liked to be seen, and he liked to speak, and he liked to be on the pedestal, and he liked to be in the spotlight. He liked it all. But anyway,
because in this person's day, he was nothing. He was not known. So he obviously sought popularity. Okay? And he found it through his deceptions.
As he's starting to speak, these hieroglyphs that the golden angel's holding up, they're floating in the air. So as the dude starts to speak, one of them would light up, and it would flip. And it didn't go, you know how when you read left to right? This was going the other direction. So the one on the angel's left hand would light up, and then go
bit like Aramaic and
Hebrew. It was going backwards for some reason.
Okay.
So anyways, it's just like, boom, and then after he's speaking, it would flip, and it would be a totally different hieroglyph on the other side. And it would start back over.
If we remember rightly about the Egyptian language, when the Arameans went in there, they're trying to find or the Syrians or whoever went into Egypt, and they're trying to find a language alternative because they had the cuneiform texts, which were quite hard to write, etc. You had to be way at the top and fully understand it, and had that sort of skill, that mindset, that talent, etc. However you want to put it, to actually use all these wedge characters, right? The cuneiform. So they're looking for an alternative, an easier way to write, easier language to speak, etc., etc. And they apparently, dealing with the Egyptians, they took their part of their hieroglyphics, their alphabet, etc., or whatever, and merged it with their Aramaean, okay, their Hebrew, Israelite, Assyrian, whoever they were, language, right, and came up with this language. So we have a book called the Timeline of History or something like that. We just grab it, the history of timeline or something. Find it. Yeah, the timetables of history. The new third revised edition, a horizontal linkage of people and events by Bruno Grun, based on Werner Stein's Culture Fahrplan, the timetables of history. It had 3 people trying to translate it, and they all died off apparently over the years, and then it was finally published, and it was the 3rd edition in a certain date, which you're not going to really look up for it. I can't remember offhand, but it's published somewhere around, let's have a look, I think it's got publisher's notes. The Timetables of History is a direct translation of much of the material that appears in the original great work on which it is based, Culture Fahrplan. The Culture Timetables, a spectacular success in Germany ever since its creator, Werner Stein, produced it in 1946. In the intervening years between then and now, it has been updated several times, and in its various editions has sold in the millions of copies. Fortunately, in the late 1960s, a man emerged who was not only eager to tackle the task. Okay, go up here a bit. Obviously, an English language version of this fascinating and prestigious work was eminently desirable, but for more than 20 years the difficulties appeared to be so great as to make a translation impracticable, both from an editorial and an economic standpoint. Fortunately, in the late 1960s, a man emerged who was not only eager to tackle the task but ideally equipped to accomplish it. Bernard Grun, born in the Czechoslovakian part of the old Austro-Hungarian monarchy, and educated in law and philosophy at the universities of Prague and Vienna, had by then been settled in London for decades. An eminent musicologist, he was almost as well known as a historian, with an encyclopedic talent and turn of mind. Completely bilingual in German and English, he could translate, delete, revise, and add fresh material so that a new volume would emerge that would be a pertinent and useful one for English language reading public. Additionally, to make sure that sufficient emphasis was given to American topics, the manuscript was then turned over to an American scholar, Wallace Brockway, whose authority and experience both in history and in compiling encyclopedic works were very similar to Mr. Grun's. Sadly, after several years of work on the project, both men died before the first edition of this book could be printed and published, and this was a source of deep regret to all those involved, right? We are grateful to a number of people for their help in checking, rounding off, updating and completing what had been left unfinished. And in this connection, acknowledgements are due to Helen Barrow, etc., etc., and Lawrence Udang and his firm, who did a superior job for the first two editions, and to Market House Books, who saw to the complete expanding of this new updated edition, this third edition, right? And that's Peter Squid. And it has a foreword by Daniel J. Boston, and we're going to get to where it talks about the language. Okay, we're just trying to find it here. Okay, Sumerian, this is, what's this page? Page 2, column B, Literature and Theatre. Sumerian writings done on clay tablets shows about 2,000 pictographic signs. Earliest Babylonian omen tablets around about minus 4,000 to minus 3,501. Minus 3,500 to 3,001. Sumerian wedge-shaped cuneiform writing, the earliest known. Then in the same column, Sumerian poetry lamenting the death of Tammuz, the shepherd god, also first epic Tales of Gilgamesh, minus 1200 Gilgamesh epic. Sumerian cuneiform writings reduces pictographs still in use to about 550. Pepys, papyrus, instructions to son, etc., etc. One of the earliest preserved literary documents. The first libraries in Egypt, script changes from Sumerian style, horizontal, left to right, to Semitic style, vertical, right to left. So that's what this golden angel was showing this particular false prophet, and this NDE guy was seeing that. So it was a Semitic style, right? But we believe it says here, somewhere in here, that the Egyptians changed theirs from left to right to left, vertical right to left. Yes, it's somewhere in here. Have a look. See if we can find it. Okay, it's not there. Okay, maybe it's in another column here. Egyptians use alphabet of 24 signs. That's page 4, column B, Literature Theatre. Egyptians use alphabet of 24 signs. The story of Senuhe, oldest form of a novel written in Egypt. Beginning of Semitic alphabet. First Hittite cuneiform inscriptions. First of 7 periods of Chinese literature. First mention of Israelites in the Egyptian victory hymn. Gilgamesh's epic is recorded minus 1200. We're looking in other columns to see if there's any more on the hieroglyphics. cuneiform writing in Urartu, Babylon. Greek script based on Old Semitic Phoenician characters with additional vowels uses only capital letters. Okay, letter scrolls with translations of Old Babylonian texts into Aramaic and Greek represent link between clay tablets and Greek papyrus. Between early clay tablets and Greek papyrus. Syrian language changes from Phoenician to Aramaic, and so forth. So yeah, these Hyksos, or these Aramaeans, developing an easier language from the cuneiform, probably adopted some of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the writing, maybe the language. So, who was that person? Well, as he reveals at the end of this video, the false prophet that he saw going through those experiences. Drum roll. I haven't got a drum, so just use the knee.